This is going to be really cool where we're going here for the rest of SOBCon, this particular SOBCon Northwest. And we wanted to kick it off by having Brett talk to you about Direct Relief International. Because Brett's the director of the International Programs and Emergency Response Division of Direct Relief International, which is a nonprofit medical assistance project dedicated to improving the quality of life for people affected by poverty, disaster, and civil unrest. And this is an organization that has been around since 1948, and they believe in helping people to help themselves by improving their health and welfare. So, you know, Brett's been among the first in the door to help victims in places like Haiti, Pakistan, and Japan, and here. And we were so honored because we were introduced to, is it DRI? Is it okay to do that? Yep. By our great folks at Citrix, and we were talking about our Give Back event and how we wanted to structure that. And I think it's going to really be cool. We'll just let it go along because at the end of Brett's presentation, we're going to talk about how things are going to work tomorrow. And I think it's going to be really cool. So I just wanted to introduce that and also introduce Brett Williams.
Thank you. I'm Brett Williams from Direct Relief International, as you may have guessed by the huge slide behind me. And actually, I'm really honored that I'm able to come up here and participate in the conference. And thank you all for having me. So far, just the last few hours have been intriguing. I've been taking tons of notes and hoping that I have something to add to this whole mix after hearing that thing from the conversation with, Liz. Yeah, let's go with that one. You're right. Crowd participation is welcome, by the way. Please do jump in. I'm hoping that it can be a conversation. I'm going to go through what our organization does, what we're trying to accomplish, some of the things that we do well and some of the things we don't do very well. And if there's any kind of interaction that you have a question, you have a suggestion, I'm definitely looking to try to solve some of the problems that we're faced with day to day. And if you guys have ideas, I'm more than happy to hear it. Quickly, our organization's based in Santa Barbara, California. We've been around since 1948, as Terry mentioned. The aim is to find local healthcare providers and support them with donations of medicine, medical supplies, and some cash resources to help them treat a population that can't pay. Often we find these amazingly talented healthcare providers around the world, local folks, who are treating patients who have, there's no economic viability of their clinic, of their hospital. The cost recovery model does not work. They have a large population that is unable to pay for the services. It's life or death, literally. We're trying to support them so that they can continue to do their job, but they're struggling through all the time. One thing we've noticed is that talent is equitable across the globe. Opportunities obviously are not. And we kind of consider ourselves talent scouts. That's how we think about it. We try to find these amazing, talented, deeply experienced local folks who are providing healthcare services and give them small amount of resources, what we kind of say is the tools to do their job. It's great to have a firefighter, but if you don't have a truck or a hose, you can't actually do anything. So it's the exact same situation in a lot of the countries we work. So we work in 70 countries around the world delivering these medications, medical supplies. But we actually also work with over 1,000 healthcare centers in the US. So there's a network across the country of nonprofit community health centers. And this could be extremely relevant. Hopefully it is, maybe it's not. But when we first started to try to support this group, we realized that there were these anchor facilities in communities. In Santa Barbara, there's a free clinic. There's actually 3 free clinics, 2 downtown, 1 in Galita. And this is where low-income, uninsured folks go. This is where they go to get care. And there are thousands of these, there are 8,000 across the United States. And they're like mom and pop groceries. They're like mom and pop kind of stores, and they're not networked together in any way. So there's no way to bring kind of the scale and efficiency that the corporate world has and what they've learned how to do well to this sector. And when we saw this, we thought, maybe this is not our natural inclination, this is not what we do, but we thought maybe there's a way we can actually add value to what they're doing by just bringing them together. So it's kind of a twist on what we do, but we realized that delivering the medication to all of these different clinics, we all of a sudden had gained insight that, wait a minute, all these guys are doing the same thing, but they don't know what they're doing. They aren't able to interact with each other. They're steeped in their job doing exactly what they can do, and they don't actually know that there's somebody 2 miles away doing the same thing, or actually in another state. So what we tried to do is we built, I'm getting way off the topic now, but just bear with me for 1 minute. We decided that it was important for us as an organization to leverage what does work in the corporate environment, in the business community, and bring it to the nonprofit world. So our business is delivering medication, medical supplies. And we get those donated from the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. And there are 140 different companies that donate medicine, medical supplies to us. And then we find these great people and we deliver it. The mission is very simple. I mean, people need medication. They're talented doctors. Connect the dots. What we thought of is, if our end goal is move resources from this spot to solve a problem, we could either go ahead and raise money and then pay for that, or we could break down this process and say, who does each of these things the best in the world? So if it's managing the information around what we've received, literally inventory management, what we have, we need to be like CVS, Walmart. We need to be able to have massive amounts of medication come into our facility, put it in our inventory, easy to view for our customers, which happen to not pay. These are healthcare providers who are nonprofits. And then we got to get it to them. So we thought, maybe we can work. I don't know if anybody's heard of SAP, the ERP system. This is amazing. I've talked about SAP 100 times. No, 2 people have raised their hand. And I saw like 50 heads in here like, yeah, I know SAP, no problem. So we talked to SAP and we said, is there a way that we can work with you to roll out a full ERP system for our organization? And they actually kind of laughed. They're like, you guys, a 50-person group in Santa Barbara, wants to implement SAP. And we said, if it's going to bring the efficiency of the for-profit sector to the poorest communities in the world, we want to do it. So they gave us this insane discount and essentially gave it to us for free. And then we had to come up with the cost to actually implement it, which was way harder than getting the software. If anybody's gone through any sort of implementation like this, it was brutal. But 3 years later, it's working. So what we're able to do now is we're able to have all of these clinics all across the world log into our network that we've created and view our inventory live, order like they're going to Amazon.com, and then our medical staff looks at it, and then we deliver it. So this first part of the value chain of what we do, we thought we could either raise money and pay somebody to do this, or we could find who's doing it the best way and do it. So then we thought, okay, now how do we deliver the medications that they ordered to Haiti, to Alabama, to wherever? And we thought, FedEx seems to do this pretty well. Maybe we could go to them. So we went to FedEx and we described the mission, we described what we're doing, and they were kind enough to say, yeah, we can help you. We can help you do that. So FedEx gave us and gives us every year a drawdown account like a regular paying customer of $350,000 of their cost. So it's about $1.2 million if you're going to pay for this service to actually have them deliver these things. So now we're using this SAP ERP system for the order management, networking these folks together, and FedEx is delivering the medications for free all across the United States and then in some of the countries where they work, obviously. So we were realizing that we could keep costs really low if we were able to find businesses who had a similar goal as us and then take advantage of their strength, their core competency that we didn't have. And that was one thing that we've realized, and this is actually kind of a long way to get to how we met Citrix as well. Not to plug them, but I might as well since they're here and they brought me up here. But we're actually a customer at Citrix, just for the record. But we found out that it's actually a lot more efficient for us to find the leaders in the industry work with them on their core competency to do what we're all trying to do. And we realized that we were able to sit down and try to help them realize their goals at the same time. Everybody kind of won. Long story short, though, this isn't about direct relief, our work. We were doing these things that are really unsexy in the nonprofit world. Like, you've never got a flyer that, like, children are dying, please support our SAP system to deliver. Like, that's never happened. And it's one of those tricky things in the nonprofit world that I'm sure maybe you heard about earlier, that the work isn't really what is rewarded often, but the best marketing. And this is a place that we've really figured out how to untie the knot with, communicating with these amazing people, delivering the medication. Citrix has helped us communicate with each other with GoToMeeting, HD Faces, and the people we work with in the field. How do we tell people about it? And this is where we suck. We are awful. Has anybody heard of Direct Relief International? Not a so. Yes, that is amazing. You don't count. Only because Alex is from Citrix and lives in Santa Barbara, where we are. So one person. So we're California's largest international nonprofit, oldest, and the only one who's able to deliver medications in all 50 states. But we obviously are not getting the message out, as you saw. And I don't know, this is something where we really struggle. We are very good at communicating with people who are willing to take the deep dive, really like pull the curtain back on the nonprofit and understand how it works. But the regular person, my mom, she is really, really touched by like the image, the one that comes to mind is the Humane Society that has that current commercial with Sarah McLachlan, which is like tearjerker, and that stuff works like you can't imagine. We don't want to take the heart out of our work, but we are focused mostly on the head, and that is not working for us marketing-wise. So that's a huge challenge we have right now. This is, if anybody has any suggestions on how do you spread the word, this is gonna sound awfully brash, for free. What we're trying to do is we're trying to keep costs down and overhead low and maximize what we deliver. So Forbes rates nonprofits every year, and they rate them on cash in, what they pay on administrative costs, what they pay for fundraising, because people spend money to raise money in the nonprofit world, which is a tricky situation. And for the last 7 years in a row, Direct Relief's either been rated 100% efficient or 99%. So our mission, again, is to deliver these things at the lowest possible cost with the highest quality, and really make sure that these people are empowered that we're working with all across the world. So this is kind of a teaser for tomorrow, but we have 3 amazing guests tomorrow who are going to speak live, and they're just 3 of hundreds of amazing people we work with. And this is how I got into this job, not to kind of digress and talk about myself for a minute, but I'm going to, sorry. When I was actually just out of college, I traveled around, didn't really know what I was doing. I was trying to figure out my life, and I was doing that, try to extend not having a real job for like as long as I could. So I was traveling around, and before I went on this long trip in Southeast Asia with one of my close friends, I went into Direct Relief and I said, is there a way I can help? And they said, you know, we're not like most nonprofits where we send US folks into the field to like tell local people what to do. We find local groups and then support them and try to work with them to achieve their own goals. So I was disappointed, and I said, okay, well, I guess there's nothing for me to do. Went on this trip, and then I got this email that said, actually, we have lost communication with one doctor in Laos. Would you be willing to try to find him and reestablish communication? I said, sure. Found this guy, and what he was doing is he was teaching a midwifery class to 3 what they call hill tribes, which I can't imagine is the right term to use, but that was what they were calling these folks that were living on the Thai-Burma border. One was called Black Thai, one was called Hmong. I'm sure people have heard of these ethnicities before. And the challenge that this guy had was that all of 3 of these hill tribes don't have a written language. So he's Laotian and speaks English, went to med school in the US, and he had figured out a way to pictorially represent the safe birth process for a woman who comes in and is delivering at home. And 99% of the births were happening inside these people's houses with a midwife or actually an unskilled healthcare provider. So I walk into this room and I find this guy, and he's teaching this class, and I shocked everybody in there when I walked in. Obviously, my hair was like all long, and I was, yeah, you could see the whole thing in your head. But these women were really surprised, and he's speaking, I guess he's speaking Laotian, but they don't understand what he's saying. But so he's going through the pictures. He said he did it just to keep the rhythm of him like going, because he didn't know what parts they're picking up. He explains the process. He explains how he's now tracking where these births are. He explains how these women are now empowered to address a complication. They know when to bring a woman into the health centers when they can't handle what's happening, if someone's hemorrhaging. And I left going, wow, this person is amazing. Like, how many of these are there around the world? And then I went back to Direct Relief, and they said thousands. There are thousands of people like this. And that is why I got involved, and that's what we're really trying to do. As I kind of get into the weird weeds of like how we do it and how we're approaching it, the end goal is we're really trying to support these folks because they have the most at stake. Often in emergencies, they're the first responders, and they're there. I mean, this is their community, and that's kind of how we approach it. So in this kind of larger sense of what we're trying to do, I don't even know if I'm on slide 3 here yet. Please do give me time though, and I'll blab on here all day. But okay, perfect, no problem. It's gonna be great, guys. Yeah, so please do interrupt if anybody has a question though. So I mean, that is the mission. That is why we're doing this. We're trying to, empower people, really bring medication to these folks, but also trying to tackle the like day-to-day business things. How do you communicate what you're doing? How do you keep people interested? And yeah, that's a perfect question.
Restate that question.
What's your online presence like at this point?
So we have a website, directrelief.org, if anybody's online, which I think everybody is. And it's, since we're all family here, it's bad, to be very honest with you. Our website, we have one person managing our website. We're 50 people, 50-person organization, and most of the resources are trying to deliver these things, and we sell ourselves short by actually not staffing up key posts like who's going to manage the website, not only technically, but who's going to be the author, who's going to have this voice. And then who's going to do the Facebook and social media, Twitter, who's going to do that? And what happens is it's one person. So it gets old and stale fast because there's a style that this person writes in that becomes repetitive. And you could be writing about a famine that's happening currently in Kenya and Somalia and Ethiopia now, the Horn of Africa, or it could be about Haiti, or it could be about the US. But because we haven't figured out how to switch it up, it's bad. I mean, that's one of the major challenges. My mom loves it, which is really nice, and she feels like she's informed, but she's not as critical as we need people to be and tell us, it's old. Like you need to have multiple writers so that it doesn't sound the same every time I go, and you need to include more videos and photo, and you need to push it. And this is a challenge. I think this is actually a perfect forum because you guys, I'm guessing the read of the room is that a lot of these people have just launched new businesses. You're doing most of it yourself. Is that pretty accurate? Generally? So, okay. Thank you. And what we have is we have 64 years of inertia, and we have 50 people, and it's really hard to turn the Titanic sometimes on this kind of stuff. And that's what happens. It's hard to push the limits of things when you've done it one way. The good thing is our CEO actually does a very good job of asking the 6th grade question, why? Somebody comes in and, a person quits and we need to fulfill the position, and then like the manager comes in, okay, I think we need to hire this person to replace. And he's like, why? Well, that's what we did. That's what we used to do. And he's like, I don't care. Does that work? And then it's like, oh God, why'd you ask me that? Like, no, it's not working that well. I mean, maybe I should redesign it. But that's a challenge. That's the flip side of having one or two people and you can be dynamic all the time. We view ourselves in this constant like up kind of startup mode because he's brought this culture into our organization. And he came from the Peace Corps and the government side, where he said, you want to see real bureaucracy, you want to see things really move slow, you have no idea. He said, this is like a dream. 50 people, we can move this thing around, we can change it, we can do it right. But some things are kind of fall and slip through the cracks. And we think it's good, like, oh, we posted something new on the website. And it's like, well, so, I mean, great. Everybody's doing that constantly. We need to figure out a way to make it really interactive and have people kind of dive in. And then this actually brings us to another topic we were talking about earlier. So then the challenge is, because people are supporting us and we're supporting somebody else, how do you make everybody feel part of the same thing? And I think this was brought up maybe earlier, so I won't go into this too much, but it's a real challenge for us not to use the word we on our website, because when we say we, it looks like the staff, not the people who are giving to us. So if you go to Direct Relief and you want to feel a part of it, you want to feel like you're connected with the person we're working with, and we say, we did this and we did that, it looks very self-serving, and it can be a turnoff, and we're trying to figure out how to change that so it feels like the partnerships are real, not just that word that we keep using. Everybody keeps using that. We use it for, everybody's a partner. Citrix is a partner, the healthcare provider is a partner. It's like, but how do you really feel like you're part of it without adding a layer? Because we don't want to be an extra layer in this if we don't have to, but we do think the value is we make connections that would never be made. We have access to the FedExes, the Googles, the Pfizers, the Abbotts of the world, and these folks don't. So what we do is we try to say, okay, we see where you're trying to go, and we see where you're trying to go. Where do they overlap so that we can come together and actually do something, make a change? And that's been where we've focused a lot of our energy. And then the next piece of that, just to kind of keep going. So as an organization, just to get this out of the way, we've focused on delivering these healthcare services to these folks, but then we've focused specifically on maternal and child health. A woman dies every 90 seconds in childbirth. 99% of the deaths are in the developing world. So it is directly related to economics. Access to healthcare. If you have access and you have a skilled provider at birth, midwife, doctor, the chances of you dying go down drastically. We've, as an organization, said this is something we can do. We can find these folks, we can get the materials that they need to make this happen, and we can help train. This is something that we've been able to do collaboratively. But it kind of, back to a different point, that after we kind of mentioned some of these areas, we also focus on some specific diseases. HIV, AIDS, we have a massive testing program, a huge opportunistic infection program for folks who have, because you have such a compromised immune system, you end up actually dying most often from other things. We also are now focusing on diabetes because the incidence rate are going through the roof. Places like Mexico, India, it's the fastest growing disease. Trying to get in front of that. The United States, exactly. Sorry, we'll just skip through it. You saw some of the USA stuff. It's a major priority to keep us focused here, but let's just get rid of it. So then, these are not where we're trying to go. So the issue is, for us, and this maybe can be interesting, hopefully, everybody knows, everybody knows women shouldn't die in childbirth. Like, we all agree. Advocacy, it's all there, but where are they dying? Literally. And this is what we came to. It's like, okay, we agree they shouldn't die. It's like, okay, so where do you want to put resources? And then we realized, well, we don't really know exactly. So we started to work with the UN, and we said, okay, where are the highest incidents of maternal mortality? And they said, okay, Sierra Leone, Afghanistan, Liberia. And then we said, okay, inside those countries, where are the women dying? No idea. We realized there's a huge issue for us in the healthcare side of the nonprofit world of sizing the problem and actually understanding specifically where can you have a useful intervention. And that was where we've now been spending a lot of our brain power, is how can we really truly understand one of these issues and then do something. The difference between advocacy, everybody understands what, this is bad. Let's advocate to raise awareness. That is really, really important. But then you have to flip it over into execution. You actually have to then do something and change it. And that's the kind of crux of where we're spending so much of our time now. And this is one place where social media actually has been very interesting. There's a group called Ushahidi, which is crowdsourcing information during disasters. And it's allowing all of these individuals, again, who have a voice to somehow create better information, better kind of situational awareness, if you will, during major emergencies. And this is an area, yeah. It's called Ushahidi. USHIDI, I think. Yeah, somebody might have to Google it in here for me, but I believe that's how you spell it. And it's brand new, and it's one of these things where emergency response used to be left to the UN and to governments, and NGOs play a huge role in it. But what's happening is with the way that information is able to move now, everybody has a part. You can, often there's fires in Santa Barbara. People will tweet about where the fire has moved to, and before the fire department will release information. People's Facebook pages will be more accurate than the first responders. And this is one of those things where we figured out early, if there's a way to network all of these people who are all part of it, you can start to see trends, and you can start to try to actually pinpoint where you need to apply resources. Yeah.
The question related to, just so I can get it for the camera, relating to co-branding with different nonprofits such as Vitamin Angels, which was somebody at SOBCon a couple of years ago that we talked, and out of Santa Barbara.
Who we helped found.
Right. So can you address this
I think actually the question is, why don't nonprofits work together? Yeah. I think the reason that the most obvious answer is they're competing for resources. And they want, unfortunately for most nonprofits, they're worried how will they find their next dollar to keep the thing running. And they feel like if they partner with other groups, they could actually dilute some of that. I think it's totally false, actually. We actually don't work with Vitamin Angel, surprisingly. We should. We work with who they work with, though, which is a slight take on it. If they've identified somebody in the field that we think is quality provider, we will then work with them so that it can be a more comprehensive package of what we deliver. The co-branding side and the how do you do like events with each other, that is a real challenge. And I think often it's mostly a selfish nature of we need to somehow protect our donors and the people who support us, and we don't want it to bleed into other nonprofits. And it's a shame, to be honest, because you know what happens? A lot of people duplicate efforts, and especially in emergencies. You see nothing but, so is anybody like a major supporter of the Red Cross or a volunteer of the Red Cross in here? Okay, good. So that's true. So no, then you're right. Thank you for that. I appreciate that very much. They're fantastic. So what happens sometimes, though, in emergencies is that you want to act fast, and there's a real pressure to do so. And it sometimes becomes about the fundraising campaign. People get out there real early, and they start to say, like, support us to do these things. And once that starts to happen, it's like a competition. It becomes a competition among nonprofits. It's a real shame. And I think it's because they're all feeling like they're hand to mouth with funds, and I think it's a false pretense, to be very honest with you. I think if you're doing good work, there's much more power that comes out of collaborating than fighting with each other. And we try to work with as many nonprofits as we can. AMREF is a big one in Africa we work with constantly. All of the groups we support, all of our success is derivative. We support groups in the field, local groups. When they succeed, we succeed. That's how we know we've done our job. We look at ourselves, if the physicians and the nurses have better health outcomes because they have more drugs on the shelf, that's when we know we're doing well. The hard part is when we get rated and when people ask you, how big is your organization? We have to use the numbers like we delivered $57 million worth of drugs to Haiti, because that's something we can actually measure. It's really tricky kind of communications issue, but in the nonprofit world, it does come down to money so often. It's a real shame because the collaboration is key, but it's one of those. I hope it evolves.
One more question, and I think we might want to transition into the give. Well, we're going to take this and pick it up or not.
So how are you working? You obviously have amazing corporate relationships. So are you working with those corporations? Are they marketing your message at all in an effort to, put out that cause focus to the world? Are they saying, hey, we're supporting direct relief?
Yes,
And are you working with them to, help them amplify that message?
That is kind of what we think of as the win-win scenario, when we can partner with an organization that has its own social cause that aligns with our mission, and we can figure out how that we can both talk about it and we can do co-branding and cause marketing. And we're very lucky because we kind of call this earned media. So if we're doing a huge campaign with CVS right now in the United States where they're going to donate $5 million worth of free flu vaccines to Direct Relief for the network of clinics I was mentioning earlier. So if you're a low-income, uninsured person who goes into a clinic and you need a flu vaccine, you'll get one for free. If you take this voucher to CVS, they'll do it. We are kind of the governance body, meaning we're going to make sure it only ends up in the hands of people who really cannot pay for it. But what they've done is they put us on their website, which is amazing. They've done a ton of co-branding, and then we try to leverage their media machine to get our name out there. And that is really the sweet spot. To be very honest, you hit it right on the head. The way that we can kind of get the most exposure for the smallest cost is partnering with people who have the ability to spread the word. FedEx, Google, these folks are incredible. And one amazing partnership that has just happened for us is with Zynga. So Zynga came to us after the earthquake in Japan and tsunami and saw our ratings on a website called Charity Navigator, which is a group that is just a watchdog organization that does nothing but rate nonprofits. And they said, you seem to have a similar mission as us. We'd like to partner. And we said, okay. And they said, we want to sell a virtual item on one of our games and give the donation to Direct Relief. And we said, that sounds amazing. They said, we want to sell a little fan, a Japanese fan, for $3. So people who are playing Mafia Wars. And then our CEO went, and he said, no, don't worry. It's on Facebook and it's no problem. People love it. It's not that violent. It's going to be great. And we said, okay, well, we did a bunch of research about Zynga, and our board was a little nervous because they're very conservative about things like this, but it turned out as like their heart is definitely in the right place. They said they'll give 100% of what they get, cleanest pipe you can imagine. They'll offer this item on their website. If you're playing Mafia Wars, you can buy the Japanese fan for $3. You advance in the game, the $3 will go to Direct Relief. We said, okay, we'll try it. 48 hours go by, they raised $650,000. And yeah. And the best part was Facebook gets 33% of everything that Zynga sells. And they went to Facebook and said, don't keep that money. Give that money to Direct Relief. And they did. And it was amazing. So starting Monday on their new game, Empires and Allies, they're going to have, I know, it's so bizarre. They're going to have a little tower that they sell that protects your island. That is $5, and the proceeds will go to Direct Relief, starting on Monday, actually. But we found out that there are really cool ways of partnering with groups that aren't a natural. We're 64 years like pharma, go to pharma, ask for the medicine, get the medicine, ship it around. And it's like, wait a minute, Zynga? Yeah, I was like, who knew that would be an amazing, amazing opportunity? Google one time after the tsunami in 2004, the Indian Ocean tsunami, put us on their homepage with the American Red Cross, and within a couple weeks, we had raised $14 million. So you can see the power of these types of interventions, and to be honest, we're holding on for the ride because these companies are so far in front of our thinking that we're trying to just stay involved and stay relevant to kind of the earlier question about our web presence. But what we have realized, which is the real takeaway, is that there are all of these mechanisms to do good in the business world that haven't kind of switched over yet. I mean, the like, here's $1, a donation, or here's like literally what we manufacture. We manufacture drugs, here you go. But then there's all these other ways, all these other mechanisms where people can get involved, and they can, like the Zynga example, they can turn on this type of thing and have such a profound effect. And we're trying to figure out all the time, who are those groups that we should be working with? And Citrix is actually one. It's like, we actually buy GoToMeeting because we need it all the time. We have staff all over the place. And for us, it's an amazing product. And then Citrix actually said, we'd like to figure out how do we turn this into something bigger? How do we do something good? So we've been collaborating that way. And there are so many things like that we're still just trying to figure out. And I think you guys are all right in those crosshairs now. Whatever your business is doing, there is definitely a way that there can be that social component. I guess that's why SOBCon says, where profit meets purpose. So I think that's it. If there are any other questions. I don't know if the thread on this talk was like this, but I think that's what you kind of have a sense of what we're trying to do at Direct Relief. And we're just trying to honestly bring low-cost healthcare, quality healthcare to people for the smallest margin so that we can keep it going. Yeah, stay at that 99% efficient. I don't know what the next slide is. Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, we need, no. Yeah, we have one more for you, Laurel. And then we should go.
Okay, all right. It said in your description that it, oh no, that we're going into it. Anyway, but it says here in the thing that we're going into was about integrating the values inside your value proposition. When you're working with groups and partners that are so far off, I mean, you never thought that these, the mafia games would ever turn into anything, okay? When those of us that are in the marketing social media business talk to clients about breaking the familiar, to go with those disruptive ideas, can you just give like a top 3 tips on how you and your head board were convinced that this was a thing to go, or how do you tell the royalty sitting in the chairs up above going to take a risk?
I think we're lucky that our CEO is constantly pushing to change the way we do it. And I think the key is continuing to ask yourself why. And this is going to sound super obvious, but measuring everything you do. So if you can take the emotion out of the conversation and you start to use data to drive some of your decision making, and he has this little tagline, information flow determines workflow. And for us, that is a really good way to kind of always take the emotion of like, oh my God, we're going to associate ourselves with mafia wars. And he's like, no, but we're going to associate ourselves with one of the most successful online businesses right now who has a way of raising millions of dollars with zero overhead. Because then our board goes, oh, okay, so you don't want to throw another gala that costs you guys like $300,000 to raise $100,000? He's like, no, I don't. I want to sell the Japanese fan online for $600,000. And I think that is one thing he's really done well. And the other is honestly just always going, why? Tell me why you want to keep doing it the way you do it. You can't be if asking why is one, and using the data to drive some of your making decisions, you can take the emotion out. And I think the last kind of thing is that he is always pushing to stay out in front. And I think he's so driven, which makes us driven. And I think he's reacting actually to the business world, not the nonprofit world. He's saying, if we were the nonprofit world, we would just do the same thing over and over because we don't ever have to prove that it needs to be efficient. You give us money, and then what I tell you is everybody's happy and healthy. But we don't have to, we can prove it in some ways, but we don't, it's not like when, I give you $5, you give me a soda, and I go, this soda sucks, I'm not gonna buy it again. It's the decision's made. That doesn't happen with us. You give me $5, I give it to somebody else, and then I tell you the soda was great. And that's the tricky part. So he's always like, no. Don't get lazy. Don't slow down. Like, we gotta innovate. Things are innovating so fast around us. Like, we have to be part of that. We can't think I guess the key is he's saying, don't think of us as a nonprofit. Just think of us as a business that doesn't get paid. essentially, and that's the key. I think it's really been his leadership, though. To be very honest with you, he's willing to take risks, and that's kind of where how it
Well,
goes.
I got to tell you, I think some of the statistics you quote about the efficiency of that nonprofit organization is pretty astounding. I mean, I think 99% knows, every dollar you take in, you use. That's phenomenal. I got to give
Thank you.
Really, thank you.
But the one last thing that, just to thank everybody for coming and asking the questions, is we can't exist without businesses. That's the other thing. We rely on people having big hearts, and we want to collaborate with them and work with them. And because we don't sell anything, there's not a distinction in my mind between businesses and nonprofits. Like, we're all trying to do something. Hopefully, we're all trying to do something positive. But it really takes the business world to keep us going, and we're very, very thankful. So thank you. Yeah.